material that is graphic and violent. This may be disturbing to sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The views, opinions, and thoughts expressed by the guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed here do not reflect the views held by the channel or any of its employees. Warning: the following program.
Decolonizing is the VIP, a very important person, a very important prince, a very important patriot, a very important politician, a very important prisoner, a very important philosopher, a very important pragmatist, a very important president, a very important pensioner, a very important patient, a very important papa. Decolonizing is the VIP, a very important person, a very important prince, a very important patriot, a very important politician, a very important prisoner, a very important philosopher, a very important pragmatist, a very important president, a very important pensioner, a very important patient, a very important papa.
Ha ha! The lion is awake. Yes. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, night riders. Yes. Welcome to another exciting episode of Midnight Date. And I am Major Daughter. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This program is powered by Grace World. Go ahead, share this broadcast. Tell everybody we are live, we are live, we are live, we are live. We would like to know, are you for or against a day that honors ancestors? I'm not alone. Go ahead, share the broadcast right now. Tell everybody. Yes. Oh, I can see all of you. Tell us where you're watching from. Send your comments. Send your questions, whatever it is. Send them right now using hashtag Ancestors Day or hashtag Midnight Date. The time we've all been waiting for, the time we've all been longing for has come, is finally here. Good morning, good morning, good morning, night riders. Yes, go ahead, share this broadcast at least 100 times, would you? Ha ha! I'm not alone. I am not alone. We are talking about a very thorny, something that is setting a hot debate, if I could put it that way. It's setting a very hot debate, right? But we love it. Let's have this conversation. Join the dialogue wherever you are. Right away, tell your friends to tell their friends. That is happening live and direct. I'm not alone. I'm with Honorable Zolani from Contralesa. Now, you already know him because this is a nation's poet. Those of you who have seen him before, he's right here. And I'll be talking to him in less than a minute. Go ahead, share the broadcast. Come on. What are you waiting for? Tell everybody. We've got to talk about this thing. In fact, we've got to talk about things that are uncomfortable. We've got to talk about things that we don't really want to talk about, right? Even this one. So let's talk about it. Send your questions, send your comments. By the way, I would like to implore everyone watching me right now that remember the Zulu nation in your prayers. Remember the Zulu nation in your prayers. Most of you know what is going on. Those of you who don't know, you can just check the news. Remember them in your prayers. Let's keep them in our prayers. Praise God. So I just want to move Ancestors Day. Many people have never heard of that. But today, I bring you all of that in less than 30 seconds. Less than 30 seconds, really. This is Midnight Date. If you have just joined us, welcome, 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 welcome. This is Midnight Date, and I'm not alone. I am talking to Honorable Zolani Mkiva. Yes, from Contralesa, we're talking about Ancestors Day. Are you for it or against it? Let's hear your opinions. Let's have you say something about it, right? We want to hear what you're saying. This is it. Let's ask our questions right now. Whatever questions you have, send them right now. Yes, good morning, good morning, good morning, Night Riders, global community. Help me welcome Umhlekazi Molo Tata.
Boleni Dadwetu Molo, Midnight Daughter, Major Daughter, and thank you for having me. And I really feel honored and humbled to be hosted by you on your broadcast platform and to be able to interact with our people across the length and the breadth of our country, the continent, the diaspora, and the world over. Thank you very much,
Amen.
Major.
We're excited to have you, and we're very grateful, honored, really. Thank you so much. The pleasure is all ours. Now, can you kindly introduce yourself to the world as the nation's poet, but not only that, have so many hats?
Well, I am the son of the soil, a brother to the daughters of the land. I do not have perfumed lips, but I speak the truth. I do not have cat eyes, but I can see the true colors of the mother continent. I do not have a dog nose, but I can smell and distinguish between carbon monoxide and oxygen. I am the son of the soil, a brother to the daughters of the land. I do not have donkey ears, but I can hear what makes sense and what is a new song. I may not have a big heart, but I do have passion and love, passion for my people, passion for my country, passion for my continent, and indeed passion for the world over. Heartically, I am the son of the soil. Rootically, I am the brother to the daughters of the land. I am the bona fide of Africa, the son of the soil, son of the soil, son of the soil.
Wow, 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 wow. I told you that we are talking to the nation's poet here. The nation's poet. Wow. I cannot imagine what you have just said. Beautiful. Now let's talk about the origins of Ancestors Day. What motivated it? How did you come about it? How did this all get started? Let's get to it. Everybody's waiting now to hear.
Well, we have been applying our mind on a number of things that are happening in our nation, as well as the continent, including the diaspora. You know, we are now a liberated continent in terms of a post-colonial arrangement in years which exceed 60 years, as an example, since the first African continent was liberated, so to say. But South Africa in particular is the last African state to get its right to be a democratic country. So we've been in this situation for 27 years. But we can see clearly that we can't seem to find a way forward as a country, as a continent, and as a people, which is informed and is caused by a number of situations, both at a political level, but also just generally at a societal problem. Our people remain in the squalor, and there is a great disconnect which we see in our society, a disconnect which manifests in many negative ways. The killing of innocent children, the killing brutally of innocent women,
very nasty things that we see which resemble Sodom and Gomorrah in our society. But most significantly, the levels of poverty, joblessness, as well as a number of things that are linked to corruption, the squandering of public funds, the self-centeredness on the part of those who are in political offices, who are referred to as politicians. So we see also the marginalization of the African culture in the same context, and the beautification of the Eurocentric ways of doing things. We see the marginalization of the African spirituality and the promotion of imported belief system, adopted belief systems. And we see that all of these things are making us as a society and as a people to move in circles, because it creates instability. All what I have explained, it creates a situation which is more chaotic, and that presents a crisis wave, which is very much consistent across our states in Africa. So we felt that as an institution of traditional leadership, uh, by virtue of the powers that are vested in us as custodians of our culture, heritage, as well as custodian of land, and many other things that are linked to our experience, as well as our history as a people, there was a need to try and resolve all the challenges that we're facing. But our observation became quite very clear after we did the diagnostic, that the disconnect is partly made because we have deserted, so to say, our ancestors. We have not embraced them in a full confidence, in a manner in which, as a collective, as Africans and as Native in particular, that we have not put them in the mainstream of the things that we do in our society. So in so doing, we felt that there was a great need to mainstream African spirituality in the management of the national question, as well as the management of the African continent at large. And African spirituality is that which connects us with our ancestors, those who have transitioned, but also it connects us with our future ancestors. So there is a very powerful relationship between us and those who came before us, because in us, we carry their genes. In us, we carry their blood. In us, we are made of their bone. And therefore, our relationship with the ancestors is not only biological, but it is a relationship that is also very systematic, but also very spiritual, because we carry their hopes, we carry their knowledge, we carry their aspirations, and those aspirations are equally our aspirations, because they left this world with an unfinished business, because most of them, especially the recent ancestors of the last 300 years, witnessed the brutalization and the terrorization of the African continent by coloniality. And their hope was for this continent to be liberated. And their aspiration was for their children to be emancipated so that the wealth can get back into their hands. So perhaps the mistake that we have done when we received our emancipation was to overlook their role and place in our society. So we are trying to correct that. We want to intercede and make sure that we account to them by way of informing them that we have now crossed the Rubicon. We are, so to say, in a post-colonial Africa. However, many things remain unresolved. The land has not been fully restored to its people. In particular, in South Africa, the land remains squarely in the hands of people of European origin. That's funny to some, but to us, it's not funny. It's very bad. Because you cannot afford to have that situation wherein you are dominated by a minority culturally and otherwise. So we are trying to take a stand and a stance in order to correct our society. so that our society can move forward. We are doing this in a very constructive way and in a very progressive way. We want to take all our people with us as we move into the new direction. We believe that the situation in our countries will not be resolved by politicians, and it will not be resolved through a political revolution, but it will be resolved through a cultural revolution, which is inspired greatly by African spirituality. And the African spirituality, it is that spirituality that is anchored in the values and the norms of Ubuntu, the spirit of togetherness.
Wow. Now, are you saying, did you just say you want to intercede to them? And also, I'm just following up on what you have said. Are you saying the troubles that the country is facing is as a result of ancestors being deserted, the ancestors of the country being deserted? Are these problems, the corruption, the killing of children, of women, are all those things, are you saying they're all caused by Africans or South Africans deserting the ancestors? Or what are you saying?
No, that we can't simplify it like that. I am saying that the manner in which we are conducting ourselves is not in line with the teachings that we have inherited from those who came before us. We are misrepresenting them in the manner in which we are acting. And we are therefore saying it is important for us to honor them, to converse with them, and to ask and request them to give us wisdom and guidance. And therefore, we want to ensure that their spirit has full backing of what we are doing as a people. We want them to help us to correct the wrongs, as well as to right our wrongs as we move forward. And therefore,
how are you misrepresenting them? I'm trying to understand, and I'm sure our viewers also wants to understand. How are you misrepresenting them? I hear
with
that you
what
said
is
you want to finish the unfinished business, meaning whatever they started, you want to finish it, which was not finished. Okay? Now, how are you misrepresenting them? And the issue of intercession.
The misrepresenting is happening in the manner in which we are mismanaging our state and our society, in the manner in which we are behaving, which is not in line with our values and norms of Ubuntu. We are doing the opposite of what we ought to do. The role of women and the place of women in society is very central from an African point of view. But what we are doing as this generation, the brutalization of women, the ill treatment of children, is totally un-African. And in fact, it is anti-African. So we want to change, and we know that has been caused partly because of what coloniality has done to our society, because it has brought and imported a lot of violence. The genocide which has been committed against our people. And therefore, we want to resolve that, because the manner in which we govern our states, we have simply inherited a system which basically continues what was begun by colonialists. So we want to transform our society. We want to Africanize our society. We want to localize the things that we do as we administer our country.
And intercede with your ancestors and also converse with them. Now, was there a request for this day, if I may ask? Were there people saying we've got to have such a day, or yinto nje niye nasuka naba nayo yiphupho le Contralesa? Could you please just explain to the whole world how this comes about? Was it requested, or is it a dream?
Look, these things come in a special and a very spiritual way to us as a people. Traditional leaders are leaders of their own people. They are custodians of their culture, but they are also in themselves spiritual leaders. This has been communicated to us through one of us.
Okay. And who is one of us?
Who has then who has then shared it with the leadership.
Who is the person? Oh, now that means it was communicated to one person. May I know who that person? And I'm sure the viewers, I mean, really, they are flooding. They like to know. Yeah,
Well,
who
at a right
is this
time,
one of us? At
a right time, we will announce to the nation as to whom this divine calling was actually communicated. But as you know, in Africa, we appreciate individual initiatives. But what is more important is the collective action and the embracing of that idea that came through an individual, especially if it's an organic idea like this one. And because it was immediately shared by others and everybody actually had an inclination at some point in one's history that something like this ought to happen. This must be read in a very good light because it is meant for goodness. It is meant to ensure that we find a way forward, as I have indicated. So for me, it is something that ought to be embraced, because what we are saying, we must honor, recognize, and salute our ancestors and show love and appreciation for all the good things that they had done. Because we don't fall from the sky as the current generation. We have been produced and reproduced by those who came before us. Hence I said to you that we carry their genes, we carry their blood, and we carry their knowledge and hopes and so on and so forth. So we are a conveyor belt between the recent ancestor and the future ancestor. So we mustn't think that as the current generation, we have a right not to do and actually employ our responsibility. We are simply employing our responsibility. We think that we have overlooked something very important when we cross the Rubicon into the new South Africa, that of ensuring that actually we should have honored our ancestors there and then. But it is in the nature of politics that politics, indoctrinates and inculcate a culture of self-centeredness. It is for that reason that we are taking leadership upon ourselves and ensuring that we occupy the space and ensure that we take our rightful place in society, because we represent an institution of the people which predates a colonial era. Our African spirituality was demonized and labeled names by people of colonial origin. People who come from the West. They call African spirituality names, and they talk about us worshipping ancestors and so on and so forth. We worship God, the God of motherland. And therefore there is no notion, of...
Sorry, sir. Who is this God of the motherland? You say you worship God of the motherland. Who is the God of the motherland?
It is the God of humanity. He's the God of humanity. Umverengangi, kukamata, kimudimo, kuthixo, nguzimu. Ngoko ke ndithetha ngoNkulunkulu.
Is it the same God that Christians worship?
It is the same God that the Christians worship.
Okay.
It is the same God that the Muslims worship. It is the same God that the Buddhists worship. It is the same God that the Hindus worship. It is the same God that all humanity... There's one God. There's no many gods. The people who want to make any suggestion that we are talking about a different God, they don't know what they are talking about. They are actually misrepresenting us. And even in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, chapter 1, there's reference to ancestors of Jesus, from Adam to Joseph. So people mustn't be confused to think that it is only Africans that have ancestors. But as Africans, we are honoring our ancestors as Africans. And we have a right to do that. Because even others in different societies, they do the same. They honor their ancestors. Some call their ancestors saints. And they beatify them at some point. And if you go to the medieval calendar, you will see the ancestors of the Catholics and the ancestors of the Anglican. They are enlisted in their own calendar. So what we are saying is that in the African calendar, there is a huge gap, because the African calendar has not provided space to honor the African ancestors.
So how do you plan
So what kind of a people? Yeah.
So how do you plan to honor them? Because I understand that you are launching this Ancestors Day tomorrow, which is the 8th of May. How do you plan to honor them? And please tell us what will be happening on this day.
Okay.
Yes.
With pleasure. Let me tell you that we've been hard at work. Actually, the work that we are talking about has already begun. Yesterday, we started the process of laying the ground towards the marking of this day and the anointment of this day, which will now become a formal and official day to honor the ancestors going forward. So yesterday, as we laid the ground, we did this in accordance to our tradition. We laid the ground by sacrificing the first ox in one of the great places, which are the heritage places of our country, or the spiritual spaces of our country, the royal residence of Kgoshi Matuba Matibela Mokoena, who is one of our senior traditional leaders in the country, and he is the president of the Congress of Traditional Leaders. We chose to go to Mpumalanga, where he comes from, and we chose to go to his home. Now, there are two important things that I need to highlight here, is that the sun rises from Mpumalanga, and we are communicating a clear message that sifuna kudede ubumnyama kuvele ukukhanya. That's the first thing by doing what we are doing, because we can see a very big dark cloud above our heads. Number two, we came here to Mpumalanga because it is the cradle of the planet Earth. The early Earth formations are found in this province, and that is inscribed as well in the international protocols and conventions of the United Nations, wherein the Makondwa Mountains have been declared as a World Heritage Site, purely because the early Earth formations are found in this province. There is also a suggestion that the early life formation is found in the very same province of Mpumalanga. And that is why South Africa, partly between what is found here in Mpumalanga and what is found in Sterkfontein, for instance, it is referred to as a cradle of humankind. So we are a cradle of humankind. And that cradle of humankind talks to the fact that there are certain archaeological evidence which shows clearly that our ancestor was here thousands and thousands of years. And if you go to the Center of Origins at the Wits University, the evidence is there and our ancestor is there being studied by even academics. Now, we are honoring the ancestor, as I say, in line with the provisions of our culture, custom, ritual, and tradition. We have already sacrificed an ox yesterday, and today we had a huge ceremony, a ritual ceremony, to make the final signature of anointing the day of the 8th of May. So we were signing today. We were signing in a cultural way.
How?
We're signing off.
Explain, please. Explain. How do you sign in a cultural way? And why sacrifice an ox? Is it some form of a dedication, or what is this all about?
Yes, exactly. The ox is being sacrificed as a dedication to our ancestors.
What are you dedicating to the ancestors?
We are dedicating the currency that they know, because cattle play a very significant role in our society. Cattle are our currency in many respects. I'm not just a commercial currency, but it's a currency that we use to actually cement that connectivity between ourselves and those who came before us. So we do sacrifice one of the domestic animals, particularly the one that has got a high value, like a cow or a cattle or an ox, right?
And then
so we went to the kraal. And we went there and we made that dedication, and we paid respect, and we spoke at length in the kraal. And then there were other things that I cannot explain here, which are inexplicable by virtue of them being sacred. But from there, we moved into the area where the elders, the foremothers and the forefathers of Hoshima Tupamkwena's clan and the people, to also go there to converse and pay homage and pay respect, and also to inform them that this is what we are doing, and we are doing it in their honor. And it was a symbolic thing, because we had leaders who had come all the way, and in fact they are here already. They had come from the Western Cape, from the Northern Cape, from the Eastern Cape, from all the provinces of the country, and leaders of the different cultural communities. The Khoi and San people are here, Amavenda are here, the Tsonga people are here, the Ndebele people are here, the Xhosa people are here, the Zulu people are here, the Swati people are here, the Tswana people are here, the Sotho people are here, the Pedi people are here, represented by their leaders, culturally and traditionally and otherwise. So as I speak to you, I am here in Mpumalanga, in the place of Matibela. And so today was a very successful day, attended by throngs of people. And we then had a full dedicated program with the full participation of traditional healers, diviners, spiritual leaders, healers. They were part of that program, and they were conducting what they know best, dedicating the whole day to the ancestors. We've just came back to a place where we are now going to rest and get ready for tomorrow. So already this date is cemented. What we have done today was actually the cementing of that date, to say we're here to make the final signature of approval to what we are doing. So tomorrow is just a culmination of what we have been working on. Because today, like I say, yesterday we sacrificed an ox, and today we also sacrificed another ox as part and parcel of that signature I'm talking about, of cementing the day.
Okay.
So these are done symbolically and collectively for the good of all our communities, doing this as a collective for the honor and the recognition and the acknowledgement of our ancestors. You know, Major Daughter.
Yes, sir.
African spirituality has been ridiculed, and in some instances, it has been suspected. And also, not only being suspected, it has been marginalized, which has made our people to do what they ought to do or what they feel like doing in secret and in fear. We are doing this to emancipate the African voice. We are doing this to decolonize our people, to know, for them to know that there is nothing wrong for them to have a relationship with their grandfather, their great-grandfather, their forefather, their foremother. These are the people that they come from. And a generation that does not know its lineage, a generation that does not know its roots, is a lost generation. We must correct that, because we are being miseducated if we are told to forget about those who came before us. We are being misled when we are told to hate our ancestor. We are actually being corrupted when we are told that our ancestors are demons. The people who are saying that are actually demons themselves, to refer to our ancestors as demons. And I wonder if that is the way they refer to their own parents, their own grandparents, their own great-grandparents, forefathers and foremothers. So, as I have indicated, if you go to Greece, you go to China, you go even to the indigenous people of Australia and America, everybody has an ancestor. Please respect us as Africans. Respect us as the natives and the aborigines of this mother continent. Respect us and allow us to recognize those who came before us. Don't want to steer us in the wrong direction so that we remain in the chains of slavery for good. Allow us to reconnect with our ancestors. And we are facing challenges as a people of Africa. And if we are not able to take a stand now, we may be recolonized. So we are saying that let's go back to the roots and be ourselves and find a formula which is a winning formula in our lives. And try to do everything that we do in an African way without fear of any contradiction. Because successful nations have simply gone back to their basics in order for them to find a way forward. If you look at the Chinese, everything they do it in the Chinese way. Look where they are today. They are a winning society. If you go to India, everything they do it in the Indian way. Where are they today? They are a winning nation. If you go to Korea, everything they do it in a Korean way. So it's a mindset. It's a mindset which is linked to spirituality. So we are saying that you can't manage the national question only by employing a scientific approach. You need to employ a spiritual approach. You need actually to twin science with spirituality. In that way, you will find a winning way. I do not see anyone being opposed to something so progressive and so constructive, something that is meant to liberate the mind of fellow African. And please be critical to the people who are simply labeling what we are talking about without dissecting the internal logic of what we are saying. They are misrepresenting us deliberately in order to distract us and to defocus us so that we may remain a divided people whilst they are taking our wealth right under our noses. For how long? We have come to a point as the institution of traditional leadership that we are moving ahead and we are forging ahead. And we will not allow a situation where our country is being reduced into autopilot. And yet we have got leadership, especially an organic structure like the institution of traditional leadership, which must play custodianship and ensure that its people can no longer be exploited in the manner that it has happened in the past.
Yes, and I wonder who could be calling ancestors demons, really, because forefathers, how do they become demons after they've passed away? I really wonder. Now, you say a day before yesterday you dedicated an ox, and today you also dedicated an ox, and then you spoke Do you want to share briefly who were you speaking to, or were you speaking among yourselves? And was these ox, these animals that you dedicated, were they dedicated on behalf of the country or on behalf of the communities or Africa? Please just clarify that before we move to the next question.
They were dedicated on behalf of our society and behalf of our people to the ancestors collectively. It was a symbolic gesture, which was representativity for all the communities. And that's why we had leaders coming from all the four corners of this country. But this day, the Ancestors' Day, is not just going to be a South African day. It is going to be an African day. But South Africa has taken a lead to launch it and establish it. And then we're going to go all out to promote this idea that every year we must observe this day and honor our ancestors collectively as Africans, wherever we are. We are doing this as Africans. And we're doing it deliberately because wherever you go in the world, Africans are in the squalor. You go to Brazil, the most poor of the poorest are the Africans. You go to India, the most poor of the poorest community there in India are Africans. You go to America, you find the same. So we are saying that we ought to rethink the manner of how we do and approach life as a people.
All right.
We are one of the biggest populations above the surface and below the sun. If you count Africans, don't count only the Africans in Africa who are estimated to be between 1.3 and 1.5 billion. Look at the Africans that are in Brazil. They run into millions. Look at the Africans in Europe. They run into millions. Look at the Africans in America. They run into millions. So we are a people who I believe that we are more than 2 billion above at the surface. Therefore, we are in the top 3 of the biggest populace here in the Mother Earth. If we are 9 billion people in this world, if you have Africans almost close to 2 billion, you tell me we are more than 1/3. So I'm saying that for how long Africa will remain the poorest continent, and yet we've got all what it takes above and below the surface. We are the richest continent. Come on. It's because we are negating our African, our spirituality. If we are not as spiritual and compassionate as we ought to be, then it means then that we will never realize our full capacity. We're doing this in order for us to realize our full capacity as a collective. Africa can become a superpower. Let us not allow ourselves to be assimilated. Let us liberate ourselves by being true to ourselves. And one way of being true to ourselves is by being proud of being Africans, being proud of those who came before us and honor them and be critical of what happened to them and ensure that we rise from the ashes to say that the hopes and the dreams of those who came before us, which were never achieved, we must do something towards achieving them. We need to change the narrative. We also need to change the education system of our countries and ensure that we have a syllabus that is fit for purpose, for our own circumstances. So we will be putting this as well in the chapters of the syllabus in the near future, so that our people can have a better and a secured future.
Wow.
We can't.
So this is
Come
really
again?
big. I'm saying, so this is really big and broad. Now, are you planning to make this a holiday, a national holiday? Are you establishing a national holiday? What's, because this is what I'm sensing from your answers. Are you planning to establish it as an...
Ideally, it would be good for it to become a holiday. But we must not just fight for a whole holiday, right? We must make a compelling case. And I think our people, in their wisdom, with their energy and their electricity, if they see a need for this to be a holiday, that it will happen. But it should not just be a holiday just for the sake of a holiday. I think what is important is for us collectively, in one voice, in unison, in one spirit, that we honor our ancestors year on year. And we must use this time period, actually, as a monument in time. I'm not sure whether you understand what I'm trying to say. When this day arrives in 2022, it must be a monument in time where we hold hands in unison, spiritually, and begin to take a pledge year on year to say, on this monument in time, we are setting certain targets for us to say, come 2030, we would have achieved ABC.
Wow.
Come 2040, we should have achieved EFD. So I am saying that that's what we ought to do. Yes, it's very broad and it's very big. And this is part and parcel of what I want to call that as a cultural revolution, which we'll be announcing in the next few months. Because we wanted to start from the beginning. We honor the ancestor, and then we set a clear program of action of what needs to happen going forward.
Now, ACDP, the African Christian Democratic Party, is calling for a rejection of this day, of this Ancestors' Day. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it is within their own rights, because we often say that there's a freedom of speech in South Africa, but there's also a freedom for people to say things that are out of order. I think they are being intolerant. They're being intolerant in a very, very bad way. In a country which is a secular state, where African spirituality is allowed to exist, actually African spirituality is acceptable in this country. Even in state ceremonies, you have people who practice what is referred to as African religion, which is in essence African spirituality. When there are prayers during the inauguration of the head of state in South Africa, you will have all different kinds of religion, including African spirituality, as part of it. So I don't understand what Reverend Meshwe is saying. I think he's simply out of order, totally misguided, and intolerant. And actually what he is doing is even unconstitutional in terms of the South African Constitution.
Someone is saying, in a country where Christians are a majority, why do you want to have Ancestors' Day when Christians are the majority and majority rules in a democratic country? What do you have to say about that?
Well, there's a contradiction in that statement that says Christians are a majority. I would say Africans are a majority in this country. Let us not define the African people in accordance to religious lines, because this is what has made us a defeated people. This is what keeps us poor for good. Everyone who is a native here is an African first, and then a Christian as a secondary matter. So please, let us not mislead and miseducate our people. Our people have embraced Christianity, which was actually forced on them, but they have then transformed it. They have transformed it to suit their own ways of life. That is why independent churches are bigger than the churches that came from England to establish Christianity here. That is why you have the biggest church being the ZCC, the second biggest being Shembe, the third biggest IPCC, and the list is endless. You have the Bantu Church of Christ. They are bigger than the so-called established churches. It is because
someone is saying they are confused. They want to know, what is this African spirituality? How do you define it? Maybe you should start by defining that. Then maybe they'll understand what you're really talking about now.
African spirituality is simply our way of life. That is why I'm saying that it is not a religion. It is our way of life. It is our design of living. It is how we relate as a people, relate as a family, relate as an extended family, relate as a nation, and then relate with those who came before us and relate to God. It's our way of life. Simple put, it doesn't need a rocket scientist. It's just that people are talking about something that they don't know. And I think courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. So I'm appealing to them to say that they must come to us to tell them about African spirituality. They must come to us to converse with them. We don't want to fight with them. We understand that our people have been affected a lot by coloniality to a point where they are indoctrinated and they are fed with lies and half truths. So all they must do is to ask, not to jump the gun and say reject this. They can't reject it. It's impossible to reject what people are already practicing. All we are doing, we are saying, let's join hands.
Let's do it
And as a
publicly.
collective,
Let's do it without shame.
let's join hands. Yes, let's do. People, the very same people, some of them who are pastors, they actually consult with traditional healers. You know, others, they go all the way to even look for special powers. You know what I mean?
Leaders.
So no, I'm saying that
okay.
I'm saying that the irony of this is that people during the day they say one thing, but during the night they do something different. You understand? Yeah. So please let us not mislead our people. We may be denying our people a great opportunity. You know, this attitude of labeling anything that is African as regressive is very wrong, because who knows that the cure for HIV/AIDS may even come from the African indigenous wisdom or African indigenous knowledge systems. So this issue of ridiculing it is not helpful. I think the outbreak of the COVID has taught our society one or two things. That umhlonyane for the first time is being put into the equation as a possible preventative medication for this COVID. And it has been recommended even by people who work in laboratories, and it has been proven that it works. But it took 300 years for umhlonyane to be recognized as good for flu. But our people have never stopped using it anyway.
Now, who's responsible for marketing umhlonyane? Who's responsible for bringing umhlonyane?
The issue should not be marketing. The issue should be recognition first and foremost. And then the marketing is a secondary issue.
How is something recognized if people don't know about it? People need to know about umhlonyane before it can be recognized, right?
Major daughter, what I'm saying is that let us emancipate the African voice and let us allow that our things must come into the fore. Yeah. Let us not label them. Yeah. And therefore, the policy of government must also allow that we must address the historical imbalances by taking what has been placed in the periphery and bring it into the center. That's all what we are saying. The rooibos tea, for instance, you know that rooibos tea is our organic tea. Yes. By our people in the Northern Cape, the Khoi and San. But they came here, they took it, they put it through the laboratory, they processed it, they put it in packaging, and then they sold it to us. It is only now that it is being recognized that actually it was not discovered by Europeans. It is us, the people of this country, the natives, that actually started the whole thing. So similarly,
so how can our viewers find out more about this day? Thank you so much, because I know you have to go somewhere after this. So we just want to make sure that we are happy with time.
Yeah, I think people can simply use the hashtag Ancestors Day to get the information both on the net or follow us on the social media or simple Google to look for more information. But we will be writing a lot about this because we have seen a lot of interest around this matter. And we want to express our deep felt gratitude to our people across the country, the continent, the diaspora, and the world. And to say that we have arrived at a point where in tomorrow, the 8th of May, we will officially declare the 8th of May as the Ancestors Day.
Last word, your last word, your last words to the world, to Africa, to South Africa, everybody really, all our viewers, everybody listening, both those who are agreeing, those who are not agreeing. What are your last words as you say goodbye to the viewers? You say shalom to the viewers.
Well, let me say there is no tomorrow without a yesterday. There is either no tonight without a yesternight. The bones of our ancestors are vibrating. The waves of our spirituality are reverberating, propagating gogabilities, the possibilities of flexibilities. Africa is the mother continent. Africa is the continent of the future. Let us tell the whole world that we are the mother continent. Tell them tell. Tell them that them tell, them that tell. Tell them that Africa is the continent of the future, the filament of freedom, the calyx of consciousness, the corolla of people's cause, the pistil of peace, the anther of amicable solutions. Africa Maluju, Africa Harambe, Africa Uhuru. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, humanity. Thank you to the world.
Tell them, tell that we are saying to all the viewers of Midnight Date and the partners, well done.